Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock and it is the 6 o'clock club, and that is not what we wanted to see. It has all gone wrong straight away. Let us try this and let us try this. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. That is much better. Hiya, Kyle. I was having a moment there, and of course, because I have resized everything, it is all over the place. Professionalism at its best. There we go. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 6 o'clock club. It is 6 o'clock and it is Wednesday. I am pleased to have all of that information in front of me. Tonight, we've got extra people. We have, of course, Kristian, and we've got Matt joining us as well. Introduce yourselves. We'll start off with you, Matt.
Hello, I'm Matt, writer, playwright, and general games enthusiast, working with Andy on a number of projects and some of my own projects as well.
Excellent. And of course, Kristian.
I'm Kristian. As some of you may know, I've never been called professional in my life. And I guess I'm from here, the 6 o'clock club. Hello, everybody. Hope you're all well.
I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative. Excellent. So we've got quite a busy show tonight. We are going to talk about tonight's game, which might or might not happen, but I'm going to give a name check anyway, and I'll tell you why. We'll do this as waiting for people to join chat. Hi, Akara. Thanks for joining us, by the way. So tonight's game is Fortunes Untold, a 5th edition, set in Faerun. That's the Forgotten Realms. But unfortunately, one of the players has succumbed to fever. Supposedly it's just the flu, but flu can be terrible, and they are struggling at the moment. So on tender hooks to see whether it's going to fire tonight or not. So James, get well soon, and the other players, Felicity, Roz, and Adrian, we'll see. Hey there, Ian. Thanks very much for joining us as well. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about a game that might or might not happen. I will fill you in with all the details tomorrow if it does. We've got plenty of other things to chat about tonight. So what's on tonight? First and foremost, we're going to chat to Matt about his Kickstarter, which launched yesterday, and it's going very, very well. And then once we've had a little bit of a chat about that, we're going to address Elsa's question that she posted in our Discord earlier today, and that is Elsa's long-time player, been playing many different systems, but was curious about advice for running a game, being a dungeon master, games master, storyteller, keeper, whatever your flavour of of one of those things, really. So, and there's quite a lot to cover with that. So it should be quite interesting. And as usual, this is going to be a round table. It's going to be all our different opinions and advice, some of which, mainly mine, you can screw up and throw out because you don't like it. Some of it might actually be useful. Who knows? Indeed, who knows? So, across to this gentleman above me here, Matt. Your Kickstarter. We covered it slightly earlier. I'm going to call up the artwork first and foremost, see if I can actually make that work tonight.
I'll stick the link in the chat.
Yeah, so Remnants, a record of the broken world. Went live yesterday, and I'm really loving that artwork, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I will tell you why I really like it. So tell us about it.
So Remnants is it's what's known as a solo journaling game. So it's solo, you play alone, and as a game, it functions as in playing, you create journal entries. So basically, the game itself provides a world setting of the broken world, and it's a world in which a terrible catastrophe has kind of decimated the landscape, and so the world has almost fallen into it's an outdated term now, I suppose, but sort of it's kind of this nuclear winter type landscape, and so the idea is that 3 years or a few years before the start of your journal, alien giant creatures descended on the planet and basically started fighting or continued fighting a war that had been raging between them for ages and just landed on our world as a battleground. So it's very much kind of planet's been decimated by this event that had nothing to do with us. And after they'd used our world as a battleground and then moved on, we were left behind. But humanity is starting to recover in this frozen landscape. And so you, in Remnants, you are a traveler who is making your way across the landscape, and you draw cards. You play by using a deck of cards. You draw cards to get different prompts for what happens in the process of your journey that day, and how you go about and how you record that is how you play the game effectively.
Now,
So it's guided storytelling in a way.
It's fascinating because obviously I'm very, very familiar with choose your own adventure games, fighting fantasy, which is traditionally what they're being called. Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. I grew up with them.
Yeah.
So this is not the same though, is it?
No. So basically the sort of the structure of the writing an entry is effectively there are 5 steps. And I return to my handy proofreading printout that I've got in front of me. So effectively, and each step you draw a card. So you have, here is a very, very rough printout prompt, one of my demo copies. And so there are 5 stages to each entry, which is the first you draw. It's played with a deck of playing cards.
Yeah.
And so for the first draw, you establish how setting up camp went. And so depending on what you draw, you get a prompt which says, and they range from you have shelter and a fire, you're perfectly safe, or you've been given shelter at a settlement for the evening, or you've got no shelter, you've got no fire. So it's quite a bleak evening. And then you you draw again to see what the weather's been like for the day, and then you draw again to see get some ideas of events that have occurred during your travels from the day, and they may be something to do with a person, a place, a location, a creature, a thing you found, a thing you saw. And so each kind of card draw, depending on the suit, depending on the number, give you a different prompt, and then you respond to that prompt in writing the journal. And so it can be as long or as short as you like. You can write 3 sentences or 5 sentences for each journal entry, or you can write hundreds and thousands of words per entry as you see fit. It's kind of and the prompts are as open-ended as possible to allow you to tell your story and your story of this journey through this world that you're exploring. And you have the scope to make it as epic and broad scoping and important as you want it to be, or as gentle and calm and relaxing as you want it to be, because it's quite storytelling for yourself, and it's something that you can share with other people, and you can kind of pass on the journal to others, or you can keep it and just make it very much your own thing.
No, it's fascinating. Stuart has said that my mic is quiet. Is it quiet for everybody else? Or does Stuart need to take cheese out of his ears? I know he's very fond of keeping them, keeping Brie Edam in his ears. So let me know in chat if I am super quiet. My volume is turned up, but I don't know. It's fascinating. I've backed it. I mean,
Me too.
It's a no-brainer, really. It looks great fun, and for the money that you're asking, it's I mean, I don't really want to say this, but I would have paid more for it.
Well,
no, it looks good. I mean, I might get it and go, well, this is trash. Why have I brought it? But at the moment, the promises are there,
won't.
and it's exciting. I mean, this is what you
Yeah.
get on the 6 o'clock club: the good and the bad. But no, I mean, it is pretty much a no-brainer, and I'm intrigued because I've never done anything like this before. So I'm very keen to give it a bash, really.
So all you need, sorry to interrupt, all you need is a journal, playing cards, and the book.
Yeah.
And then
and then with the added option of a coin to flip if you want to. So basically the way that there's a worked example on, or a sort of a playtest example on the campaign page as well, where you can see I do an example of the 5 cards that I drew and the entry that I wrote in response. But the kind of the added mechanic of the coin toss is just as to give you an example of one of the prompts, they're pretty open as to how you interpret them. So, for example, travel events. So events during the day. If you draw the 5 of hearts, your prompt is you passed a traveling trader, and that's the prompt. And so that situation goes however you feel it goes. But if you want to kind of give yourself a bit of a steer, you toss the coin, and if it's a heads is positive, tails is negative. So it's just if you want to have a suggestion of, well, was this good, was this bad, then it's there as an optional mechanic if people want to use it.
Excellent.
So yeah, coin is very much optional. But yeah, it is just a deck of cards, something to write on, and then the booklet itself, whether that's a digital version or a physical version.
I'll have to go to the bank. Everything's cashless for me now.
Yeah. No, it's I can't wait to see it. And the art who basically you didn't do this yourself. There's a couple of creators that came on board with you.
Yeah, I did the words and the mechanic of the game itself came from my brain, but I can't draw for toffee, and which is a shame because I love toffee and I've got no chance of getting it for drawing. But no, so the artwork is being done by. So here's an example. Here's the kind of one of the first concept pieces, and is actually my niece Jenna, who is she's in her final year at university. She's already I think she's I don't know if she's a published artist, but she's certainly had a number of things on display across her home city, and she's ridiculously talented, and it's baffling some of the stuff she produces. And so the concept piece that she came up with was produced after a chat about it and reading the short story that the game was born out of. And she kind of just captured everything about the game and the world that it's set in so beautifully. So that's my incredibly talented niece. So it's really nice to be able to work with her as well, because this is the first time we've said about doing a creative project together loads of times. But this is the first one we've managed to kind of go, well, this is a thing. Let's do a thing.
So I might have missed her name. Really what was the name?
Sorry, it's Jenna Beams.
Jenna Beams.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask about? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just it was another person on the other person in the creative team is my a friend and common collaborator is Hannah Torrance, who is doing the design and layout part of the book itself. So, and she is very, very cool and great. She does a lot of she's a playwright as well, does a lot of writing for theatre and storytelling, is also an avid gamer and plays D&D in the campaign that I run, and a number of others. And yeah, so that's kind of us as a trio of creatives pulling this thing together.
Beautiful.
So yeah. Sorry, Kristian.
No, I'm going to ask about because it's part of what looks like a season of things or a month of things on Kickstarter called Zine Quest, and I was going to ask what Zine Quest is.
So Zine Quest, I am relatively new to the idea of Zine Quest, and the fact that Zine Quest exists is the reason why Remnants exists as a Kickstarter this month and not with significantly more planning. Because Remnants didn't exist a month ago. I was in Sainsbury's car park thinking about I wrote a story a few years ago called The Sheltering Bones, which was set in the world of the game. and I've always liked that world. And then I had an idea as I was leaving, having bought shopping, I randomly had this idea of, well, this would work as a journaling game, and here's how you do it. And in the way that these things usually do, when you had an idea that's really strong, it all just pours out in one go. So then I did it, and I didn't do it for any reason other than, oh, I wonder if it will work. I wonder if I could turn this into a journaling game. So I did it and kind of got a very rough draft done in about a day and a half. And then looking into it and showing it to a couple of my friends, then discovered that Zine Quest is a thing that happens. So basically, Kickstarter every year kind of encourages people to create small gaming RPG style projects that are all kind of inspired by the gaming zines that used to be published in, I think it was in the 70s. You used to get these little kind of paper zines, which were just little supplements and little tabletop role playing games, and they were either systems or adventures and stuff like that. And so, kind of in homage to that, they spend every February. I think it changed to the summer last year, but it's been February since, and I think they're returning to February. But basically, they kind of encourage everybody to do, in the month of February, take part in Zine Quest. So this is the month you produce your random tabletop project, and you do. So there's well over, I think there's nearly 2,000 projects that have got the Zine Quest badge on them. And so that was what prompted Remnants to become a Kickstarter quite so randomly and quickly.
Yeah, no, it's very good,
Mm.
and I recommend people go check it out.
It is.
It is up to you where you decide to spend your hard-earned money, but we can
Absolutely.
point you into certain directions, and that direction is that way. But before we move on to the topic of the night, I kind of just want to mention about the artwork. The reason why it's so evocative to me, it reminds me, it's very difficult to do line artwork that is sort of monochrome or sort of two-tone in color, and make it work, and the image really works for me, and it's very reminiscent of, I'm old, very reminiscent of the old kind of Lovecraftian and Tolkien-esque kind of artwork that was all in the books that I read as a younger person, and I don't know whether it's been deliberately designed to sort of capture that or not.
So what's brilliant, and one of the reasons why my talented niece is so great, is we had a conversation in a coffee shop about it. I gave her a copy of the short story that she'd read previously, which had sort of inspired the world. I gave her a copy of the working draft of the game. And I talked to her about a couple of things visually that had inspired that I was having in my brain. And those were some of the choose your own adventure artwork and sort of the fighting fantasy novel artwork that you'd see like from the books that are on my shelf over there.
Yep.
That shelf there is full of all the fighting fantasy and lone wolf games and stuff like that. And then the other thing that was really strong in my head was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah,
the film
absolutely.
by Hayao Miyazaki. And what's lovely about that is he's illustrated that there's a comic version, or it was originally a manga, which he fully illustrated.
Yeah.
And that style of artwork was very much in my head. And kind of particularly the giant warriors in there are a big inspiration on the god giants as kind of this entity in this world. So I sort of talked about all of that, and I said, I'll pull together a bunch of images and I'll send you a load of stuff. So I did, and I sent it to her. But before she'd even looked at it, she'd drawn that.
Yeah, no, it's and it sort of holding up to camera doesn't do it justice. If you go to the Kickstarter, you'll actually see the proper copy. I mean, I would imagine the original you've got is actually better than the copy, but just holding it up to camera doesn't do it
100%. No, it doesn't give it the justice
that it needs, and it's wonderful. And is that the original size of it as well? Because that's remarkable as well. If did they do it? What was the size of the original?
Oh, this. I mean, this is.
That's
It's
the
this is
original.
the. Yeah. So this was. So she did an initial sketch, and then she sort of painted with watercolor, just to
Yeah,
give the highlight and the detail on the initial sketch. So it's an A4-ish,
yeah,
nice thick art notebook type
yeah.
paper.
I,
Yeah. So she'd
I'd,
done
I'd,
that, and then.
I'd, I'd get that framed and secured away so that when she
Oh
becomes
yes.
very, very famous, you can retire by selling like one of her, quite
That
possibly for what
is
you're
the
saying,
plan.
first published work, an original.
100%. Yeah.
See, I
Yeah.
see, I do this. Um, no, truly, I wish you 100% success with it. Really, it's like it's over half funded in a day and a half, 2 days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
We're
haven't
on.
sort of checked it up.
It's currently 68%, which is bonkers, and brilliant. And if I know some people who are part of the Twisted Narrative community have already backed, and I'm
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really grateful. Thank you very much for that.
No,
And
no.
yeah, it's hopefully it will get over the line, and if it goes, there's a few stretch goals on the campaign. I've got aspirations for lots of. Jenna and I have both been thinking of ideas and the things that we would like to do. She's very excited about the idea of doing a bespoke card deck for it, but that's very much a. If it gets really, really well funded, we can look at that, because
Yeah,
unfortunately you've got to produce the things before you can sell the things. So,
it's an
but
expensive
yeah,
thing to do, but it would be
it is. But
beautiful.
it would be amazing. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get there, and it'll be really lovely to see it as a thing and produce. And we've had lots of nice feedback already from people on the campaign
Yeah, yeah.
page, just liking the idea of it. And so yeah,
Perfect. No, amazing. I wish you every success with it. I'm sure it will be.
thank you.
Um, okay, let us come on to our subject of the day, which was Elsa posted in our Discord. And as I mentioned earlier, it was advice for new dungeon masters. Basically, I'd use the term dungeon master. It could be game master or storyteller or keeper or whatever. And we were having a little chat, the three of us, before we went live, and I certainly suffer from this a lot in terms of, because I run so many games and I've been running games forever. It becomes second nature, and when people ask you for such advice, you kind of have to think carefully about actually what do you do, how do you do it, and you don't want to sound sort of patronizing either, because a lot of what is most important is the simplest of things. But I'm also hello, can you hear me? I'll bring it around there so people can hear me. Ian is saying I'm sounding quieter now. All the technical issues tonight. Hopefully I am better now. This is going to be our best stream ever because it's been so chaotic and things haven't been set right. People can't hear me and everything else. So yeah, it's an interesting question because it's made me sort of dig deep and think hard about what's the best advice to give to new dungeon masters. I think we'll take it in turns. So I'll start. I'll start. I think most importantly, it's having the right table, and by that I mean you want to play with people that want to play the game that you are running, rather than want to play with people that don't want to play in that game, or having people that have got different expectations from said game. If everybody's working together, then it's 100% easier, and that is the majority of the work done because everybody is there for the same reason, and that sounds very simple advice, but it's why session zeros are important. Because people's expectations of what is Dungeons and Dragons, or what is Pathfinder, what is Alien, what is Vassan, or whatever game that you are running, it can be completely different. So one assumes, unless you're running a pickup game or a game at a convention, you're playing with your friends anyway. But it's still, I think, important to have that session zero, sit down with everybody, go, I've got this concept for this game. Is everybody on board? What are you thinking about this game? And do your traditional session zero stuff as well. Has anybody got any phobias, lines and veils, safety measures, even amongst sort of friends? But most importantly, cover things like, is this going to be player versus player? Or is there going to be any player versus player content, etc., etc.? And that just negates any of that bad feeling that can build up when someone sort of is playing a rogue, tries to steal something from another one of the player characters. So that is my first point. Session zero. It can be very light, it can be quite good fun, especially if you're playing like the game that we were chatting about last night, Blades in the Dark, where a session zero is you building your characters and building the crew and creating the background. But get everybody around the table working together first and foremost. That is my first piece of advice. Who wants to go next? Should we go clockwise, Kristian?
Okay, yep, that's fine. So I'm actually going to address the where's a good place to start part of Elsa's message, which is should I follow a campaign book? Is there a good place to start without making the kind of mistakes that cost friendships? Well, you've already covered partly the first thing I was going to say, which is choose your players carefully. So a good place to start as a complete novice GM is normally where you feel comfortable, which sounds a bit weird. So either you go with the system you really know well as a player, which is generally good advice. One you enjoy running, one you think this will be fun for me to run, or one you think I like to play that one, I'd like to learn the rules, and then you can develop your skill with it. And I would say with kind of the adventure, following campaign book is a really, really great way to start. I mean, loads of adventures start from Lost Mines of Phandelver in the D&D world, or, Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And in those books, it gives you a lot of what you need. There's a lot of space for you to add your own stuff, but it gives you a lot of what you need. So, I mean, what actually a really good collection is I've got behind me the Candlekeep Mysteries. And that again, I'm very D&D heavy because that's where all the adventure books I've got are. But it gives you quests for each level. Just a small sort of adventure for a party. All you need to run it, all the maps, all the where you can find the stats for everything. And it's a good introduction. And the idea is that you read it all through, kind of take it all in so you know where it goes, and then you can run it. Don't just open it and read it, but take it in, run it. That is a really good way. But if you think the way I started was I knew the Forgotten Realms really well. So I picked that as a campaign setting and then went, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to GM from that world because I know it really well. I know some of the towns, and I had an idea of some quests because I'd borrowed them from media I had seen. But I built quests around that and around the themes and things I thought, and my players kind of they enjoyed it, and that sort of thing. But there's a load of great places to start with existing adventures, and a lot of the systems come with adventures already that you can run for new GMs and new players. So I'd really strongly recommend that, and reading the section of the book that you don't often get to, which is the storyteller's help or the GM guide or whatever. There's really good advice. And finally, on that point, Reddit has a load of good subreddits that help. DM Academy is one I frequent regularly to learn advice, and YouTube channels as well. Ginny D has a great amount of advice out there for new GMs about how to get into it and for your first session. So that's my advice to start with. Matt.
I'm still relatively green in the sense of, I mean, I've been GMing for, blimey, that's terrifying, a couple of years now, but it's been very much a group, and I did not, I was intimidated by the idea of campaign books, so I thought, I'll just make up my own world, that'll be easier. No, it's not. It can be, but also there's lots of stuff that's already there for you in a campaign book that's not. None of this is helpful. I apologize.
No, I think
think-
actually having your view as a newish GM is incredibly valid. I mean, what kind of things would you have liked to know? What kind of things have you learned?
I think one of the things that struck me, because obviously my sort of professional background is theatre and writing and storytelling, and there are what's lovely about, and one of the reasons why tabletop role playing in general appeals is because it's collaborative storytelling, which is what improv is, which is what devised theatre is. So it's like it's great. It's home away from home, which is wonderful. And so I think one of the key things that I've learned, and I think I would say to somebody starting out, is it's something very similar to what I would say to people who are trying to tell a story for the first time, because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there are plenty of ways to tell a story. There is no one right way of doing it. There are lots of right ways of doing it, but the most important one to try and find is your way of doing it. And I think when it comes to being a GM, be the games master and the storyteller that you want to be, and help create a story and help your players tell a story that you love and you enjoy, and that they will love and they enjoy. Because I think that's where the joy of the game comes from, not from this idea of, I'm the DM, I'm supposed to try and kill my players in every session. I do not subscribe to that as a philosophy, because I don't think it's fun. I don't want to sit out and try and kill my friends. I want to give my friends every opportunity in the world to be really, really awesome, and also to fail spectacularly and learn from that and grow, and they grow as individuals, their characters grow. All of those things, that's what being a GM lets you do with your players, working with your players. So I think, as a first bit of advice would be kind of tying into what you've both already said, in that it's find a world that resonates with you, and a story, or the seed of a story that resonates with you and the players that you've gathered around the table. Perfect. And I think if you're enthusiastic about it and you're excited to see what happens, be excited and open to whatever happens.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely 100%, and kind of leads me into what I was going to say next, which is, I mean, firstly, on the point that you said, as long as everybody around the table is of the right mind, as I said in my first point, it doesn't matter whether it's kind of more akin to a war game where, characters are dying left, right, and centre, because that is the experience that both the GM and the players want. If everybody wants to be a freeform game that is just role playing, again, that's perfectly valid as long as everybody around the table sort of wants that, which is why it's critical to have those conversations at the start of, it is going to be this kind of game, or I want to run this kind of game. Are you on board with it? But moving into that, having passion and a desire to be at the table with those players is critical. And that's my second point, really, which is enjoy it. 100%. You are a player too. You're not a player character, but you're a player around the table. If this was just a board game, you would all be of equal, and you are all of equal. So it is just as important that you as a storyteller are having fun, as the other player characters are. And that will make you enjoy the game, which means that you'll be passionate about it, which means that the other players will be engaging and seeing your enthusiasm for it, and hopefully it's infectious and everybody builds on everybody else. And the simplest way of putting it is cooperative storytelling. We covered this very briefly yesterday when we were speaking about Blades in the Dark, which is the storyteller should be a fan of the player characters, really. Sort of, in my opinion, the way that I kind of run it around the table. They should celebrate their successes and mourn their defeats. If you were directing a movie the way that a GM would be doing, you wouldn't actively, unless it was for story purposes, sort of try and make all of the protagonists, the main characters in that movie, suffer all of the time. It just wouldn't be a good movie to go and watch. And storytelling, whether it's through cinema, through theatre, or around a table, needs to be fun for everybody. So enjoy it. Remember that you are a player also, and let that passion sort of roll across, is my second sort of point, really. Kristian, have you got a second
Yes.
point?
Oh, of course I do. I could talk for hours on this, but I won't. And actually, this is a very practical piece of advice, a very, very practical piece of advice. Again, going back to Elsa's post in the 6 o'clock club channel in our Discord server. Please come along and join us if you haven't already. How do I avoid making everyone wait ages when you don't know? And this is general advice for approaching any session as a GM, but certainly advice that I learned very quickly after my very first session running many years ago, and that was to be prepared. And you are, and I don't mean you need to know everything that the world is going to happen in the world. You know every finite detail. You don't need to know that. And sometimes you can make it on fly, sometimes the tables, but it's having information to hand that you might need. So you're running a campaign in a modern day setting, pre-gen a load of names. You're running it in a fantasy setting, pre-gen a load of elves, dwarves, whatever. Generate a load of names and just have them there and cross them off once you've used them. When I started GMing, I had this purple folder that had lots of printouts I got from the internet of like different shops and what they sold. And this was all for D&D again, and different names and different place names that I could use, and different maps. I went on a place called Donjon, which does these wonderful random dungeons, and I printed off a load of those and had those ready to hand just in case. And most of that stuff I never used, but I was glad it was there. And actually, in more modern terms, a couple of 6 o'clock clubs ago, some people might recall me saying, I don't remember the rules of combat or what the actions in combat for D&D 5th Ed. I don't remember what they are. But that's because I have a GM screen. Now, years ago, that was a physical screen I'd have, and you'd have all the stuff on the inside. But now for running things online, I have my tabs. I'm lucky. I've got 3 monitors in front of me, and I can have one with the game and one with all the things I need and one with all the other things I need. And I prepare by having the tabs open for the 5th edition status conditions, 5th edition actions in combat, because despite playing it, I'll never remember. So I'm always trying to make sure I'm prepared for the things I don't know and have things to hand that I think I might need. And sometimes you might be one session in before you get to that. And don't be worried to say to your players, if they go somewhere that you haven't prepared for, or if they start to do something that you're not ready for, you don't be frightened to say no, or say, okay, thank you, right? We'll have to hold it there because I need to prepare for where you're going to. It's absolutely valid to cut a session half an hour short to say, hey, this is great. You've gone somewhere new. I want to give you the best possible experience. We're going to call it there, and we'll get back together next time, and you can explore that, and I'll have it wonderfully prepared for you. Don't ever be worried to say that. And if you have a group that ever complains at you for that, that's probably not a great group. And that's probably my next bit of advice.
That's very good.
Yeah, and I can build on that slightly. I think, or give my add my tuppence to that. And but one particular thing is I found it ages ago, and this is very specific to 5th edition. But I think it was either Drive Through RPG or DM's Guild. It was a free PDF, and it's basically all of the content of the Dungeon Master screen on an A4 page.
Yeah.
So that just on the desk is brilliant, just as a quick to hand thing. So that's useful. I think Kristian's very right in everything he said there, and kind of my addition to it, I guess, would be also trust yourself and remember that you are the GM. And you are the GM because everybody's gone, would you do this for us? Or you've invited them to join a game that you want to run, and they've gone, yes, we would like you to run the game. So you are running the game. And I think there are moments, and I've had them a number of times, where I'm still, there are still rules I don't get, or there are interpretations of rules about jumping and stuff like that. Jumping in 5e still baffles me, because is it movement? Is it movement? Do you do it on top of? Do you do it now? I don't know. And a couple of times those moments come up, and particularly if they come up in the middle of a complicated role play interaction, or if they come up in the middle of combat, sometimes people, 3 or 4 different people are shouting different ideas out at the table. You're the GM. You are within your rights to go, right, this is woolly. For the purposes of now, this is what's going to happen. And you make the call, because it's your call to make. And that can be, this is what we'll do this time. It may not be right, but it feels right to me. And I will take it offline, and I will check and be right and be solid in my knowledge for next time.
Yeah.
Because it's, ultimately, this is about everybody having fun at the table and not interrupting the flow,
Yeah.
and you can make a call, and don't be afraid to make a call, I think, is the most important thing. And whether that's a case of, yes, you can go to this place, or no, we need to close this session, or we need to finish this session now so I can go away and prepare. Or, if you just don't know a thing, that's also okay, because not everybody, some people do this for a living. One of our esteemed colleagues on screen does, but not everybody does. And if you're doing this as a hobby and you're just doing it for a bunch of mates, they should be forgiving. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And ultimately, it's a game. Everybody's there to have fun. So, yeah, I think just don't be afraid to say, in any case, we'll definitely do this. I'm not sure about this, but I'm going to call this for now, kind of thing. I'm waffling a bit now, so I'm going to stop. But I think that was mine.
And sort of coming back to both of those points before I go on to another one. Absolutely, it's absolutely fine to go, right. We can't move to that location at the moment because it's not prepared, and I want to give you the best experience possible. There is literally nothing wrong with that at all. But what you can also do, because this is collaborative storytelling, is when you are not sure about what is the best rule, and there are multiple examples in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Jumping is one, illusions is another, stealth is another. The rules are not clear in any way, shape, or form. It's down to the GM to basically go, well, what works best here? And that can be an open conversation you can have with your players. Like, if it doesn't really make any kind of real difference, it's like, okay, what works best? What's going to be the coolest thing to happen here? If you had worked it out in a certain way, then as a storyteller, you can say, well, as Matt just said, for the moment, we're going to run it like this. I will take what everybody has said on board, and we might well redefine the way that it works in future sessions. And what is also important is to give the players a degree of agency as well. So it works best when it's something that is revolving around said character. But it can work well outside of that, and that is to ask questions. So, for instance, if one of the characters is visiting their parents' home, for instance, and they haven't really written any backstory or anything, so there's no definitive answer to what it's like. You don't have to make it up as a GM. You can go, right, well, what is your parents' house like? Or you can say, what is your own house like if they go back to their own sort of apartments or accommodations. But you can also share the load. If they want to go and visit this place on the fly, you can actually say to the players, okay, well, you go in here, what's it like? Not in an arsey kind of, I haven't done it, so you're going to do all the work, but let's build it together. Let's make this really cool together. And that works because the players suddenly feel like, wow, this is a cool place because it's got some of my ideas in. And it's a really nice collaborative way of world building. And then you can take those ideas, take them away with you. And next session you can have built onto that and brought it back. We are beginning to run out of time, so I'm going to throw in another one which I think is important that we've not covered yet, which is listen. Always listen to the conversations that your characters are having, both in and out of character. They might come up with some really cool ideas. They might come up with some really stupid ideas that you kind of want to go, right, I need to do something to stop them going elsewhere. Stuart says, yeah, he's got a bespoke, magnificent mansion, which we won't go into. We're still below the watershed at the moment. But yeah, listen to the conversations that are being had. You're not cheating. You're not going, oh, that's a good idea, but it's there, so I can't use it. It's cooperative. Whatever makes it the most fun for around the table with everybody. That's the aim of the game, is for everybody to have a great time. And if you think that one of the players or one of their characters has come up with an ace idea, incorporate it, embrace it. And they might go, oh, told you so. It's like, well, kind of. You kind of did tell me, but only like 2 minutes ago because it didn't exist before. But it's about fulfilling that joy and that fun around the table. So always listen. And we've got enough time for another couple. Kristian, have you got anything else?
I have two quick fire ones.
Yeah, go for it.
And again, this is more focusing on you as a person, and not so much on the players, because we've given a lot of advice about how to effectively run a game and manage a story. But one, decompress afterwards. Give yourself time to let the story just and everything that's happened wash over you. And two, if you feel comfortable, get feedback, because good feedback really helps. Helped me a lot, having a couple of players that were really friendly and could just say, I hated that bit, I like that bit, I didn't like that, I didn't get that. And yeah, that was me.
Yeah, no, that's two very, very strong suggestions as well. Matt, have you got anything else that you want to add before we bring today's club to an end? Don't feel that you have to. If you've got nothing that's pressing, it's up to you.
It's more an expansion on, I think, what you've both already said, and it's that listening and work with. And what's really nice about taking, if you're using something that's pre-written, taking it very much as a leaping off point and making it your own, because that was the philosophy behind a lot of tabletop role-playing games to begin with, and I think embracing that is important, and also bringing your players on that journey. I know that the campaign that I run with my kind of regular group of players has been running for 3 years now in a homebrew world, which it existed as a map with not a great deal on it. Now it's a sprawling continent with a bunch of cities and an entire organization, which was partly the brainchild of one of my players who wanted to be a monk from this order and had some ideas, and then kind of went, I thought I'd give it to you and then we see what happens. And between us, we've worked out it's an entire faction now that you could write a source book on. And what's lovely about that is my players have agency within the story as players and characters in this story, but as players at the table, they also know that the world that we are playing in collaboratively and collectively, they've got as much influence on as I have, because the plot that they're now doing is not a plan I had from the very beginning. It's responded to everything they've done so far and has been born out of a couple of random instances that they don't realize, and that's the joy of it. And I think be excited about those opportunities. They can be intimidating at times, but ultimately, you are a group of friends at a table telling a story together, and I think bring them on that journey with you as a storyteller as well.
No, absolutely. Great point. Very well made. Okay, well, I'm not entirely sure whether I'm running a game tonight or not, but at 7 o'clock I need to be at the table just in case. So it's been fascinating, genuinely. Well done on your Kickstarter. It looks amazing. I can't wait to get it. Thank you very much, everybody in chat, for being part of tonight's club. I hope you found the conversation interesting and informative and useful, really. Let us know what you think. Jack has posted some other things in Discord for us to chat. Tomorrow we have got Chris from Evil Pigeon Games that will be talking about his publication. So I'm very excited to have a chat with Chris. Tune in if you can. But for now, it's goodbye from me and Matt. Do you want to say goodbye?
Thank you very much for your time. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one.
And Kristian.
Stay away from my house.
He's got a boiler now. Hot water. So, yeah, thank you very much again. Take care. Look after each other and yourselves. Have a great evening. I will hopefully see you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock. See you later. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.